Now, on to the man who's going to talk to us, David Hogg. David, of Horizon Imaging. For those who are very observant, you will have noticed there were a couple of drones as you walked in on the table at the back there. David actually built one of those, the largest one. He's going to talk to us about drones, both their applicability to the property world and wider world. We're then all going to, with your agreement, ladies and gentlemen, go outside, where he will fly a bigger drone. He will film us, and the aforesaid photographs will then be available of the whole assembled multitude here. And hopefully we'll also have some press coverage as a result. We've all heard about drones, some good situations, some very sad. You may have read that in this dreadful fire in the Tower Block in London, where the rescue crews could not get into the higher stories, they flew these specially designed mini helicopter drones, which David will tell you about, into the upper floors, the only way they could see what was going on. So it's more than just displaying beautiful properties in a setting such as this here in West Surrey. So without more ado, I would like to introduce you to David Hogg of Horizon.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. Firstly, I'm not going to be here very long because I do understand that it is quite hot. It's very hot in here. And we all want to go outside and look at the drone, which is the reason you're probably wanting to listen to what I have to say today. Firstly, just a very big thank you to Penningtons Manches and to David for allowing me to come here and present to you. I think drones is quite a hot topic. Some people love them for what they can do, which is what I'm mainly going to focus on today, and others think they're invasion of privacy and that kind of horrible thing. So, just going to briefly talk about what I do, some of the applications which many of you may not be aware of, and then just briefly talk about the regulations, because if you're using a company that offers drone photography, that is a key area to ask about. So, very briefly, and as David mentioned, we're going to go out for a demonstration afterwards to get an aerial photo of all of us. My name is David Hogg, and my company is Horizon Imaging. I have distributed flyers all over the place. I'm based in Aldershot and work across the southeast of the UK, including London, and offer 6 key services, which again are on the flyers. Drone aerial photography and filming, masked aerial photography, architectural photography, virtual tours and video production. Now, definitely the most interesting and cool part of what I do is the drones. So I'm going to start with 4 basic questions which will involve some audience participation. The first one is, how many of you have heard of a drone? Put your hands up. Good. Excellent. It's a good start. How many of you have used or commissioned drone photography within your company in the past? Okay, good number of you. And how many of you here are aware that there are regulations that govern the use of drones and where they can and can't be flown? Oh, that's good. I'm very pleased to see that. I can shorten the last section then. So there is still a lot of uncertainty, scepticism and fear about these things, mainly because the media only focus on the really negative sides of drones. So it's either they've been flying too close to airports like Heathrow, and there have been a number, a not negligible number of near misses with airliners, and that's usually why the drones are in the news. But I'm trying to reverse that, so whenever I give presentations like this, I'm always trying to tell people these are fantastic bits of equipment. They've advanced enormously over the last couple of years, and what I do in taking aerial photos is really just the tip of an amazing iceberg in terms of their applications. So I'm just going to run through some of these because some of you might not have thought, oh, you can actually do this with a drone. So obviously aerial photography and video, which is what I mainly focus on, taking imagery of completed projects or sites to show off their scale, complexity and setting within the surrounding landscapes. These images are of particular relevance to housing developers and tourist attractions like hotels, where the location is often the key reason that it's one of the key assets of their business. On that line, I've worked with CGI companies that are able to take the imagery that I've taken from the air of an empty site or even one that's under construction, and then put on computer-generated models of the finished development, allowing the development to be marketed before it's actually been built. One of the flyers on the tables does have a picture of a shoot I did for a developer down in Chichester for that very reason. Briefly on the topic of showing off the setting and the location of an event, weddings. I've already shot 2 weddings last year, and just to be able to see the whole event from a completely different perspective is just fantastic. And the feedback I've had is very, very positive, because it's very well having close-up pictures of all the guests, and that I would never advise against that. But being able to see the event from above, you get the whole setting, you get the people milling around, the drones are very quiet when they're up at altitude, so you're not even aware of them. And there are example videos of that on my website. Another interesting application is aerial inspection and surveying. So flying up and inspecting parts of buildings that are otherwise difficult to reach, for example roofs, including checking gutters and valleys for blockages, and tiles for damage. Bridges, church steeples, mobile phone masts, wind turbines, the list goes on. Another application is assisting in the planning and dispute resolutions. For example, photographing plots of land looking straight down from which you can identify the boundaries of properties. And also taking photos from a particular height to simulate the views from a proposed development to make sure that the proposed buildings won't overlook neighbouring properties. And these are all things that I've done in the past. Another application is 3D topographical modelling, so making a 3D model of a site. It could be just to get a better idea of how the land undulates, or you can actually calculate the volume of material present in a 3D model like that. So if you imagine taking imagery of an open cast quarry, and then you do the same survey a few months later, obviously material will have been removed. You can calculate with some degree of accuracy how much material has been removed. Another application is thermal and hyperspectral imaging, so analysing heat loss from buildings, and you can actually monitor the health of crops using this technology as well. So I'm jumping all over the place in terms of the industries that these drones are being used in. Lastly, a few sort of oddballs. Delivery and transport of goods. You might have heard of Amazon Air, is it? Amazon are really investing a lot in trying to develop drones to deliver your packages, even quicker than they do at the moment, and it'll come and land on your lawn. I'm on the fence with that at the moment. I think there's too many difficulties to make it viable in the built-up areas. But on the same topic of delivery, in Africa and other developing countries, all over the world, you can use drones to deliver goods to very remote areas very quickly and easily. So I know there are many projects in Africa where they're delivering blood samples, vital medicine from a base right out into the wilderness. And you just enter the GPS coordinates, it goes there, it lands, you can unload it, the drone takes off and flies back. So these are just some of the amazing applications that we might not be aware of because the media don't tend to focus on them. And as David mentioned, the Grenfell building disaster, there are small drones about this sort of size that actually have a spherical cage around them that means they can fly through windows, bump into things, and continue flying, and that's what they use in disaster zones, not only where buildings are dangerous to enter because they're structurally unsound, but also if there's radioactive contamination, like in the Fukushima disaster in Japan, they were flying drones in, putting cameras where you wouldn't want to send people. So it's just fantastic, and this is just really a few examples. I just want to briefly touch on the regulations before we go outside. Well, I'm not sure if it's hotter inside or out at the moment. You've probably all heard of the Civil Aviation Authority. They basically govern all flying vehicles, so whether it's an A380, 38,000 feet carrying 500 passengers, down to a foam model aircraft being flown in a park, believe it or not. Obviously every aircraft has its own risks associated with it, perhaps greater risks with an airliner than a foam model aircraft. But it's all contained in a document called the Air Navigation Order, which outlines the rules of the air for everything that flies, pretty much. I won't bore you with all the details, but there are two basic articles, 137 and 138, which basically state you're not allowed to negligently or recklessly endanger an aircraft or anyone in an aircraft, or to endanger any person or property, which is, to me, common sense. Unfortunately, it seems not everyone has common sense these days. Like the man who thought it would be a good idea to fly a drone just above head height down the Mall whilst the changing of the guard was taking place. I don't know, some people might think that's sensible, but And they do have a whole section on drone regulations. And one of the key regulations is that drones have to be kept within line of sight the whole time, which is defined as 500 metres horizontally and 400 feet vertically. And this is partly so that the pilot can maintain orientation of the aircraft, see where it's going and where it's pointing, but mainly because above 400 feet you've got full-size aircraft. And obviously near airports there are exclusion zones where you're not allowed to fly because of the aircraft coming into land. The regulations also prohibit drones from flying within 150 metres of congested areas, which is defined as any area where the majority land use is for residential buildings or industrial activity. And lastly, and this is the one that really dictates where commercial operators can and can't fly, is you're not allowed to fly within 50 metres of any vessel, vehicle or structure not under the control of the operator. And yeah, as I say, this is generally what makes it difficult to use drones in built-up areas, because everything within that 50-metre bubble has to be under my control. So if there are roads nearby, or railways, or busy footpaths, or buildings with people in them, then I have to be under control of that. So it could mean, at the most, the extreme case of closing roads, marshalling pedestrians so that they don't walk into the flying area whilst the drone is airborne, and also making people aware inside buildings that the drone is flying outside, so not to come out whilst it's flying. So it's a bit of a minefield in terms of how to use a drone in built-up areas. For that reason, I also have a 50-foot telescopic mast, which can still give you a good deal of elevation in built-up areas, and that doesn't have any of these regulations attached to it. The last regulation I'd like to mention briefly before we go outside is that all commercial operators have to hold a permission for commercial operation. That's what it's called. And it's basically a license. And to do any commercial work, and that includes either commissioning an external company like myself, or doing the work yourself within your own company, the drone operator has to hold one of these CAA licenses. Getting the license isn't an arduous task, but it does ensure that all commercial operators have attended a valid training course on safe operation and maintenance of drones. They have adequate insurance, and they know where they can and cannot fly drones legally. And if you'd like any more information on this or guidance, please do get in touch. That's probably all I want to say for now. So I suggest we now all move outside so I can demonstrate one of the drones, which I will hold up here. This chap.
Pretty impressive.
And this one has I primarily use this one for video because it has a 3-axis stabilised camera gimbal underneath, which takes 4K resolution video, and it's completely rock stable. So thank you very much for listening, and let's all move outside now.
Thank you so much. We're all quite pleased to hear it's such a regulated industry after all the press reports that we get on these drones. Apart from you as a pilot here, I just spotted Jeff Davis there. Jeff is a very experienced helicopter pilot. I'm sure you two have got a lot in common. And we'll be talking about drones and helicopters. Big thank you to the West Surrey Golf Club. This has been another lovely lunch. They're so good to us here. Let us have the wonderful facility, and when we get the photographs you'll see what a magnificent setting it is here. So don't forget to tell your friends and business colleagues about the next lunch, which will be in the autumn. We don't have the summer one. This is the best bit of the year for me, the summer event here. We don't have a late summer one, I should say. So don't forget to come along in the autumn. It'll be wonderful to see you all again. We're going outside now. We'll take the photograph. Please feel free afterwards to come back, stay outside, mill, business develop with each other. That's what this is all about. And just make friends and talk business, because as you all know, we're property professionals, and what do we love? Nothing better than property. Thank you so much for coming along.